Welcome back. How has your day been? I hope it's been worthwhile. Yeah. Awesome. So I mentioned in my opening remarks that one of the focus areas for this particular conference has been better understanding how technology leaders can span the business and technology divide. The biggest proponent of this is Courtney Kistler, who's on our programming committee. I first met her in 2012, back when she owned technology for Nordstrom, a large US retailer. She then went to head up retail technology at Starbucks, and now she's VP of Platform Engineering at Nike. And so when we on the programming committee started to get wind that we might actually have Adidas talking, we asked Courtney, could we get the direct-to-consumer Nike group to present? Because here, and we actually made this happen, so thank you, Courtney. And this is something I'm very excited about, because here is an organization, if you look in their shareholder communications, you can see how radically they're changing how they interact with customers, drastically changing the role of the retail channel. So the next presenters are Randy Lyons. He's the Senior Director of Technology for Nike Direct EMEA. And presenting with him is Michele Powers, CFO of Nike Direct EMEA. So when I heard the title CFO, I went back to my old world, and I thought CFOs are the people who are in charge of financial reporting and setting expense report policies. And what I learned is that in Nike parlance, that is not the role of the CFO at all. At Nike, CFOs are in charge of setting the financial objectives for the organization and co-creating the strategy to achieve it, as well as being responsible for things like financial reporting. So I am super excited about this talk. Nike is headquartered in Portland, Oregon, where I live. And one of the most interesting things I've got to do in my career is actually attend, on a Saturday morning, a high heat shoe launch. It was their biggest shoe launch where they're selling direct to the customers, as well as through retail partners. For the Air Jordan shoe launch, and it was just a phenomenal experience to watch nearly 100 people spanning business and technology execute this high-stakes event. So with no further ado, Randy Lyons and Michele Powers.
Wow, that is absolutely one of my very favorite videos, because not only does it bring to life the passion that I have for sport and the passion that I have for product, but it also showcases some of the work that we've been doing, and Michele and I have been doing together over the last year to year and a half to bring some digital experiences to life. So my name is Randy Lyons, as Gene mentioned, and I've been with Nike for about 15 years. 3 of that has been out of our European headquarters, which is located just outside of Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
And I'm Michele Powers. I've been with Nike for 6 years. I've spent some time with Nike Consumer Business in China, and I've been here partnering with Randy for the last 2 years in EMEA.
Great. So we're super excited to share a little bit of our own story with you about the transformation that our business has been going through, about the transformation that my team has been going through as a response to what our changes in the business are, and then a little bit of an introspective look at my own personal transition that I've been working on with the help of Michele over the last couple of years. So we'll get started right away with talking a little bit about what Mark Parker, who is our CEO for Nike globally, announced to the world a little over a year ago. And he said that our company was ready to turn the corner and move into our next phase of growth. And we would do that by getting closer and closer to our consumer, closer to where they are, closer to where they play, and closer to where they interact and have access to Nike. We would also do that and lead it with digital. And so we would lead that growth through the interaction that we have with our consumer, whether that be in our stores or with our digital channels. So it's an exciting point to be on the ground in EMEA, because along with that, we are also doing our own transition to respond, and we're building out an extended engineering organization as we're going through some of our own movement around DevOps as well. So let me talk a little bit about kind of how we respond and how we interact with the consumer today. So behind me, you see a little bit of how Nike's organized. I think the most important part to set context or grounding for this conversation is to point out the marketplace where we believe our influencers are, and where we will focus on experimenting and trying out some new capabilities, trying out some new ways of interacting with our consumer. So we are definitely working on this culture of experiment, test, learn, and then scale from that. And that is across EMEA. It's London, Paris, Berlin, Milan, and Barcelona. Our touch points with the consumer is both in our stores. So we have about 750 stores across EMEA. About half of those are owned and operated by Nike, and the other half is operated by our partners. It's sort of like a franchisee model, where our partners are operating that store, but you walk in the door, there's a swoosh over the door, and you would expect that you were in a Nike door. And then the other touch points that I think are exciting to talk about is across our digital landscape. So some very world-class experiences, all grounded by our core platform of Nike.com. But we've introduced some new apps over the last few years, two of which we just introduced this past year. The Nike app and the sneaker app came to Europe this past year. So through the Nike app, we curate the experience for the very best of our members to connect with the very best of Nike. In the sneakers app, we actually work very closely to continue to motivate, inspire, and lead our sneakerhead community through the hunt and reinvent the hunt with things like leveraging augmented reality and being able to get access to that high heat product to the sneakerhead community that's looking for the very, very best and hardest to get to product. And then our Nike Running Club and Nike Training Club apps, two of the leading, both actually the world's best running app. And in US and EMEA, the Training Club app is #1 as well. So those are our touch points for our consumer. What's important about all of those touch points is that we have one member profile that weaves those experiences together. So you log in with one profile, and that profile follows you from core.com through the app experiences and even down into our stores, so that we get to know the consumer more and more. That allows us to curate that experience for them.
So that gives us a great platform to take advantage of the major shifts that are happening all around us today. You all know that mobile dominates. I mean, your mobile phone is practically an extension of your limb at this stage. But that means our consumers are very empowered and very informed. In actual fact, 80% of consumers consult that very phone or LIM before they make a purchase in store. This means our experiences have to be seamless. A point of contact can't be a point of friction. But this empowered consumer wants more. They want personalization. They expect us to know them, to get to know them, and to exceed their expectations. They want to anticipate their expectations, not just need them. Pretty tricky, right? How are we going to do this? Just one word: speed. And that's why I'm really excited to be here with you today, especially with this team of get together and go faster, because we do need to go fast if we're going to go at the pace of the consumer. And how are we going to do that? Well, certainly by working closely with the principles that you have brought together in your movement and partnering with technology and understanding that to move fast, we have to test and learn, and sometimes test and fail, and test and learn again. But as well as that personalization, we also have to take advantage of the disruption in our marketplace. Probably some of you people here have come up with some of the very smart ideas as to why everything is so fast and easy for our consumers. And certainly here in London, it seems to get faster and easier every day. But this disruption gives us an opportunity, a new way to connect with our consumers. But they don't just want fast and easy. They don't want to just do transactions. They want distinctive experiences. And we know that we must give them distinctive experiences wherever they interact. A tall order, with that demanding consumer right in the center, with these skyrocketing expectations. But you know what? Who cares how much their expectations skyrocket? Let's just surpass them. And how are we going to do that? By really leaning into the opportunities for growth. There is so much opportunity in this next explosive pace of growth, really brought to life by all the great technologies that are entering our world. First and foremost, at its core, what Randy talked about earlier, what's critical is that membership. And what's really critical, what we have partnered with Randy and his team, is to make sure that we have one member profile. Whether you want to track that run you might be thinking of doing tomorrow morning, or whether you're searching for your new sneakers, or whether you just want to access the great product, we need to make sure that you just have one member profile. Why? Because we want to go on the journey with you. Membership is about closing the gap between the emotional connection you have with the brand and actually accessing what you want. And if we build those lifelong relationships, we can add inspiration, value, help to our members as they go through their journey. Not my journey, but their journey. But that's just one element of this explosive opportunity for growth. Another key element where we have to partner together is on what we like to call NCX, or Nike Consumer Experience. This has to be a unified experience, whether you're shopping in a own store in London or visiting a partner store in Paris or anywhere across our ecosystem. But it has to be relevant for you at that part of the journey. It has to be an elevated experience, and it has to be exciting. And as well as that, there's even more opportunity for growth if we partner closely with technology. There's a lot of new business models out there. I mentioned earlier about the disruption, but disruption gives us a chance to new business models. A small example we have here in EMEA is we already have an inventory partnership with Zalando and some of our other key partners across EMEA. But all this shift and all these opportunities, it's a lot coming together. So we have to make sure that we focus our investments, to make sure that we focus them on the NCX, fueled by digital and serving the consumer. And to do that, it wasn't just Randy that had to go on a personal journey. Together, we had to change our game and think about how we would do things differently and raise the bar to embrace that dynamic shifts and leverage these opportunities.
This is actually one of my very favorite slides. This is where I geek out a little bit because I love charts and graphs. And as a technology leader, as many of you are probably sitting in the audience and you're thinking about your own transformation that you have to go through, this is exciting. I get chills by understanding that our CEO has just told the world that we are going to get closer to the consumer and we're going to drive our next level of growth, leading and fueled by technology. Chills and butterflies. Holy moly. Careful what you ask for. Am I ready for this? Is my team ready for this? And so I did a little bit of introspection. I worked with my leadership team. We had just come off of an engagement survey, and I was really nervous about it as we were building out this future of how we were going to contribute to the overall growth of the company. Were we ready for that? Did we have the right environment? And a quote that comes back to me over and over again, I think is attributed to Peter Drucker. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And
every day, every day.
Every day. And I absolutely subscribe to that and believe in it. And so we went to work on our culture and creating the right environment for our team. So I wanted to share a little bit of the journey that we went through on our transformation of our culture. The first thing that we had to do was we had to change the way that we thought of ourselves. As a technology organization, there was a lot of language on the floor about how we supported the business, how we helped the business to achieve. And there was this divide between the business and the technology team. And so we thought about the growth that Michele laid out for us and what we had to achieve, and we realized that we could not be in support of the business. We had to be of the business. We had to be the business in order to move through this growth cycle. And so that's the mantra we created. We are of the business. And while we're super good at Nike in marketing terms and putting some good branding spin on it, we realized we had to underpin it with some actual actions. And so what we did was we have our, one example is we have a weekly all-team huddle. The entire team comes out on the floor. It's a stand-up meeting, and we changed the format of that meeting. We first did a little education on the key and core KPIs of the business with the help of Michele and her team. And then we started talking every single week about the performance of the business. How did we perform in .com last week? What were the results in our factory stores last week? How did our partners do last week? How did they achieve the KPIs? How did we support that achievement? Or did we have an outage on .com that detracted from that? And we started through a difficult transition in the beginning. It was a little awkward. The team wasn't used to talking in those terms. But the change that happened over a few months was that the questions that came up from the team started being really insightful about how their work contributed to those results.
In fairness, Randy, I think you picked it up pretty fast. And you still have a few questions, but it seems to come pretty naturally at this stage. A bit more naturally than if I started to talk technology.
I'm not so sure about that, Michele. I'm ready to set you down in front of computer coding at any moment, I think. The other change that happened was the interaction between Michele's team and my team, the interaction between our teams in supply chain, between the GMs, between the merchandising teams. There were different kinds of conversations that were happening, different kinds of questions that were happening. When you had to solve a problem, the questions that were coming up were always through the lens of the business. And that was a very powerful change that started to happen. We're still absolutely on that journey, but we're seeing some good results from that. We also needed to make sure that we're all headed in the same direction. Now, the team understood at a very, very high level what the strategy of the company was, but how their work contributed to that strategy. This is one of the things that we took out of our engagement survey, is that they didn't understand how their work contributed to the work we were doing across the business and how we were driving the growth of the business. So we spent more time talking about strategy. There are a couple of key moments through the year where I shared the detailed strategy with the team, but more important than that we field test it a little bit. The language that I use, the language that my leadership team uses, we throw darts at it a little bit. So I start looking across the organization, and I look at individuals and I say, hey, can Martijn see himself in that strategy and how his work relates to it? Can Sander see his work in there? Can Akanksha see her work in there? And it needed to be not just the folks who are working on new capabilities and new features, but can the support organization see themselves in that strategy and how they contribute to it? Can the QA tester see themselves? Can the Scrum Master see themselves? Can the product organization see themselves in that strategy? And if the answer was no, we went back to the table and worked on the language a little bit. More importantly than that, after we talked about it, then the team had to come pitch to us. So we looked out 6 months and we asked them to tell us what's their work through the lens of this strategy. And so we're constantly looking at what is the work that each individual is doing and how does that support the strategy so that they can connect their work directly to how growth happens. Then we wanted to focus a little bit more on the environment. And this is not rocket science. This is sneakers and t-shirts and leadership 101, right? Recognize and celebrate. And the team had given us feedback that they didn't feel like they were recognized for the value they contributed or they were recognized for their work. And we were like, hey, hang on. We do a big awards ceremony every year. Hang on, we do that actually twice a year. What do you mean your work is not recognized? And we realized that it just wasn't a part of our culture to recognize on a regular basis, to recognize everyone in the organization. So we took that weekly stand-up that was anchored on the front end by the business results. We anchored it on the back end with shout-outs. We wanted to take the responsibility, the accountability for recognition off the shoulders of leadership and put it out into the team. So now the team does a shout out at the end of someone who has really gone above and beyond, someone that helped them solve a problem, someone who just did really, really good, solid planning that enabled their execution to be super smooth and solid in the way that they executed. And this started changing the culture even on the floor. Again, started out a little awkward, sounds super American for their leader, Kebby did, not so comfortable with that. And now I actually have to cut them off many weeks because they're so into shouting out for their partner, and they find that that starts to break down walls and barriers, which help us with our next item, which was becoming one team. What we found was that we have these org charts, and the org charts all have lines on them, and those lines, under the guise of healthy competition, started becoming unhealthy competition. Those lines started becoming hurdles to cross over. Those lines started becoming walls to break through, and it became really difficult to react with speed. It got much slower to accomplish anything that happened. So we started this mantra, again, love the marketing spin that we do internally. So it's #OneTeam, and we started opening up our doors. We started opening up our walls. So our all-team huddle is a broad team huddle now. So it's not just product and engineering, it's support, it's QA, it is procurement, it is legal, it is talent acquisition. Anyone who needs to come and play on the field with us to make sure that we're able to achieve our objectives, we bring them in. Those strategy sessions that we pitch back on, we bring them in and we include them. And granted, this is a journey. This is one personally that I still need to do a lot of work on as well. I'm super competitive at nature, which is what drew me to Nike in the first place. But we're on that path and we're on that journey. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was fun. It needs to be a great environment for people to come and work every single day. Every single day. Not just the day we have the happy hour, not just the day that we celebrate and do the awards thing. Every day. We want to make sure that we take our work seriously, but not ourselves. And this needed to start with leadership as well. It just needed to be an environment where people can laugh and where there's energy and where we give energy instead of take energy. So things like, easy things like, I know that, my body language, I will get super stressed. My schedule is often back to back to back to back to back to back, and I'm racing out to get my ham sandwich, and I am focused on that ham sandwich, and I'm running out of my office. To the team, they had no idea that I was racing out to get a ham sandwich. All they knew was Randy was super serious, and he's running. Holy moly, what's going on? And I needed to check myself at the door. I needed to check my body language. The leadership team needed to check our body language. We needed to spend more time on the floor, joking, laughing, giving energy, and letting the team know that it's okay to have fun. It's okay to have a good time. We talk the serious conversations behind closed doors, and when we come out, it's all about making sure that the team is energized and that the team is headed down the right path with energy and that they enjoy getting there.
Well, even with all the shifts and everything that's been going on and launching the apps, you guys seem like you're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
By the way,
Sometimes
there's more
too much.
options than a ham sandwich.
Right. So if this is the work that we've done on my team, I also realized that there might be some work to do on myself. Right? When I had come to Europe, it was with the expectation that I was creating something that was a little different, that we would be headed down this path of distributed engineering, and I was going to build that capability for the organization and add capacity globally by building out an engineering capability in Europe. But then this transformation in the business came about, and I realized that I needed to change as well, and I needed to move past where I had started in my career with traditional technology, from being an order taker and then becoming an advisor. I thought I had gotten pretty good at being a partner, but what I realized was that I was not at the table as a leader for the business. I was on the org chart, I was in the slide and the picture, but I was sitting at the back of the room, not with my feet under the table. And so I needed to do some work on myself to become, instead of a technology leader playing business, I needed to become a business leader with the foundation of technology beneath me. So I needed some help with this. And I always think about the person with the purse strings first. But I got a little vulnerable, and I approached Michele, and I asked Michele for some help. I asked for Michele to help me go on this journey to become a business leader. I asked her to help educate me on the P&L and how technology was going to contribute to the P&L. I asked her to hold me accountable and not let me back away from the table, but to pull me into the conversation as we're building out strategy, because this transformation we were about to go through, we would not be successful if I could not be in the game with the team. I needed to move from, in the spirit of the World Cup and what's going on, congratulations England yesterday, I needed to stop being the physio. I needed to stop being the trainer, and I actually needed to move out of the training room and onto the pitch. And that was going to take some help. So I reached out to Michele for that help.
But the reality was that I needed Randy's help just as much. In the shifts that I talked about earlier, what you will have seen as the common theme is that technology is embedded in how we connect with our consumer. And how we connect with our consumer defines our strategy. Therefore, technology is part of every step of our strategy. The days when technology was a cool toy or a nice to have or something somebody asked for budget for that you weren't quite sure what would do are long gone. It's part of how we interact with consumers. So I had also realized that I had missed a few moments and that I needed technology in the room real time. To do that, we did need to talk the same language. That's why the cultural shift that Randy had been going on with setting the KPIs was so important. Because the language we talk is not finance or technology. It's actually strategy and the consumer. So don't worry, Randy doesn't have to learn about foreign exchange or embedded derivatives or US GAAP, and I'm certainly not going to learn JavaScript.
I swear she could do it. She could do it.
But we do need not just Randy and I, but also our teams talking that same language and thinking together in the consumer and the strategy. And maybe just to give an example of how this worked and the benefits of it as we're here in London. Randy mentioned at the start of our presentation that we're focused on our key cities. Cities are the sharp point of change. It's where it accelerates from. And London is one of the most dynamic cities at the moment. And you may have seen the comments on social media about the Nothing Beats a Londoner campaign. That was all going on at the same time as we were launching the Nike Plus app, the Nike Sneakers app, all at the same time. But to bring those to life, you have to go back to when we had our earlier strategic discussions. And if I hadn't had that connection with technology and realized that I needed that expertise in the room real time, we probably wouldn't have taken the right foundational steps to be ready to launch those. And I would probably have had to do a lot more rework. I'm not against testing and learning, but I am against missing having the right people together to help you so that you don't have to go back and redo something just because you didn't communicate in time. But what does this mean in our new ways of working, which we're still improving and still learning? The day-to-day reality is I need technology in the room for almost all the business meetings. I know, I said almost all the business meetings. Whether it's the 3-year strategic plan, whether it's the 90 days for the next quarter, whether it's reprioritizing or balancing investments, I need Randy in the room. And even when he's traveling, I need to stay in constant contact. So now you might be thinking there's no escape. You're stuck with the CFO. Well, maybe you can think of it in a different way. Just imagine the impact you can have, given that it's technology that's impacting how we connect with consumers.
Yeah, it's amazing the transition that we've been through. We actually can tag team quite a bit, where I know that if I'm not in the room, I completely trust Michele to represent me, and the same thing in reverse. I often, if one of us is going to be there, it's enough for us to be embedded in that, because we're all a member of the same leadership team. And that's been a transition that's taken us a while to get to, and one that we're continuing on the journey for. But hopefully some of the things that I shared and that Michele shared resonate with you. I know that most of you in the room, I'd be surprised if there's not one of you that isn't going through your own transformation internally. I would encourage you to look at culture first to help you with that transition. And I would also encourage you to be on the pitch with your team as a member of the business.
And when you're on the pitch with the team, you're not just any player. You're the star player. You're the high impact player. You're Harry Kane. You're Simona Halep. Yeah? Your CFO needs you. They need you now, today. Thank you.
Thank you.